seemingly are not the same.
Well, no, George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down? Excuse me. Are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him?
I do love
Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history, you're changing culture, and you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay?
We're going to consider the lunch to teams, though, if that's okay. Unless you need time, then I'll just let everyone know.
No, it's fine. I can work around it.
Only because
I got somebody on that other leg, or we'll just do my time. Do we try to spin it while we got the height over the banister?
All right, guys, so former President Trump was right again, right? He was right again. As he said back during the Charlottesville riots when people were trying to take down statues of Robert E. Lee, take down statues of, people associated with the Confederacy, in the name of social justice, right? And not honoring bad guys, okay? He said, look, this is a slippery slope, right? What are we going to do next? Are we going to take down the statues of George Washington and, Thomas Jefferson because they own slaves, right? Not everybody was a perfect angel. Matter of fact, none of us are perfect, right? He was basically implying that this is a slippery slope and it's going to lead to us taking down statues of our founding fathers, right? And people that should be honored in this country despite the fact that they were not perfect human beings, okay? In the mainstream liberal media, in response to President Trump's prediction or warning, basically it's like, Trump's crazy. Trump is out of his mind. They aren't removing statues of Thomas Jefferson and George Washington. They aren't next. Those statues won't be removed. Trump's out of his mind. Okay? But Trump was not out of his mind, right? Trump was actually on to something. Okay? Because there is an attempt in this society, guys, to remove American history as we know it, to rewrite American history. Okay? To not honor people who have made positive contributions to our society, right? To nitpick them and to say, hey, you know what? These people, because they weren't moral saints compared to today's standards of morality, they have to be removed. And we have to put up people who were moral saints, right? People like George Floyd, okay, who apparently was a moral saint that should be honored, right? The same city of New York, okay, put up a statue of him, okay, as somebody that should be honored. Thomas Jefferson, though, right? Somebody that was a founding father, right? A governor, a former president, right? Who consistently ranks in the top 5 in terms of all-time presidents by historians. A contributor to what America is today, which is the greatest country on earth, in my opinion. No. Get rid of that, right? He's a racist, okay? You see what's happening here, guys. The figures that they're trying to teach our kids that we should honor are thugs and criminals, not intellectuals and historical figures such as Thomas Jefferson, who actually had a positive contribution to this society in our country. But let's read it here about the latest example of these woke revolutionaries trying to erase history. Thomas Jefferson is no longer in the room where it happens. Art handlers packed up a 884-pound statue of Jefferson in a wooden crate Monday after a mayoral commission voted to banish the likeness of the nation's third president from City Hall, where it resided for nearly 2 centuries because he owned slaves. About a dozen workers with Marshall Fine Arts spent several hours carefully removing the painted plaster monument from its pedestal inside the city council chambers and surrounding it with sections of foam and wooden boards. They then lowered the massive structure down the stairs leading to the building's first rotunda with a pulley system and ushered the founding father out the back door. Again, this is just shameful, really. Shame on New York City for this. For real talk, shame on them for this. The 1833 statue will be a long-term loan to the New York Historical Society, which plans to have Jefferson's model survive in his library and reading room. Kerry Butler, executive director of the Public Design Commission that voted to banish the statue, at first tried to block the press from witnessing its removal. Butler relented after members of the mayor's office and city council intervened. The commission also attempted to vote on the statue's removal without a public hearing on the controversial move until the Post revealed the plan. Removing a monument without public conversation about why it's happening is useless. New Yorkers all need to talk about who we want to honor and why, said Aaron Thompson, a professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, who authored the forthcoming book, Smashing Statues, The Rise and Fall of America's Public Monuments. Thompson said the removal could spark a broader understanding of history. Removing the statue doesn't mean New Yorkers will forget who Thomas Jefferson was, but some of them might learn about the controversy that the man who wrote all men are created equal owned over 600 of his fellow humans. Thompson said, okay, listen, here's the thing about that, right? Him writing all men are created equal, despite him owning slaves, like him actually like coming up with that, writing that, has had more impact on this society than himself owning slaves. Like him writing that actually is what kind of led to the abolition of slavery, the idea that all men are created equal. In fact, Thomas Jefferson was well aware and outspoken about the evils of slavery, right? He called it a moral depravity, right? A hideous blot. He believed that slavery was one of the greatest threats to a new nation, okay? Now, again, despite knowing this, he still owned slaves. Okay, he still was a participant in the system. But again, at the time, right, you got to understand, this was commonplace, right? It was commonplace, okay, for rich landowning men, most of whom are white, to own slaves. But again, you got to understand, there was slavery going on back in Africa, right? There was slavery going on around the world at the time. So it wasn't just the white man, right, who owned slaves, okay, or that thought that slavery was okay. But he was one of the forward-thinking people during the time who knew that it was one of those things that it couldn't exist for much longer. He knew that. Now, could he abolish slavery by himself? Of course not. Okay, of course not. But I would argue that his ideas on slavery and his opinions on slavery contributed more to the ending of slavery than it would if he would have released all his slaves. Right? So again, I think that history is complicated, right? It's nuanced. Everybody has sinned. We're all sinners. But this is not about punishing people because of their sins. It's not what it's about, because it was about that. Why the hell do you have a George Floyd statue up? What it's about is the fact that a lot of these people want to erase American history and reconstruct it in what they feel like is the proper story of America, in which they see America is inherently evil, right? Because of the role of slavery. And they want to get rid of anybody that had any contributions to that, right? Regardless of whether or not their positive contributions outweighed the negative, which I will argue most of the founding fathers, if not all of them, their positive contributions outweighed the negative. Okay, but they don't care about that. They rather honor George Floyd instead. Members of the city council were split on the statue's removal from its chambers. Minority leader Joe Rebelli called the move an attempt to sideline history, while Black, Latino, and Asian Caucus co-chair Danique Miller said he wanted the statue gone because it doesn't represent contemporary values. The original bronze statue by sculptor Pierre Jean David is still on display in the Capitol Rotunda in Washington, D.C. The plaster replica was gifted to City Hall by novel author and Jefferson admirer Urian Phillips Levy in 1834. All right, so who knows when that one might be removed from the Capitol as well, right? When they become too woke, right? And they might just take that one out of the Capitol too, right? They'll take that down. They'll take down Lincoln, okay? How far will they actually go? Because if we want to apply this standard that you only can put up statues of people that, you know, have lived 100% virtuous and moral lives, which really is not the standard, because, again, they want to honor criminals, right? That's not really the standard. But if we take them at their word, okay, that anybody that is a racist or done anything that is morally reprehensible, we can't honor them. So if we take them at their word for that, then we got to take down statues of Gandhi, right? We got to take down statues of Gandhi, because apparently Gandhi, when he was living in South Africa early in his life, he was a flaming racist, right? Allegedly, he was a flaming racist towards blacks, right? As during a time of British colonization of South Africa, right? You had Indians there, you had Africans there. Gandhi was fighting for the people's rights, right? Except the rights that he was actually really fighting for were the rights of Indians, not Africans, right? He often segregated the causes of Indians from that of Africans, okay? Because it seems to me he thought that Indians were superior to Africans, okay? As according to this BBC article, these are some things that, he wrote and he said that, again, sounds to me to be a little bit racist here, right? In 1893, Gandhi wrote to the Natal Parliament saying that a, quote, general belief seems to prevail in the colony that the Indians are a little better, if at all, than savages of the natives of Africa. So he's calling African people savages. Sounds pretty racist to me, right? Okay, this is what Gandhi is saying. Okay. In 1904, he wrote to a health officer in Johannesburg that the council must withdraw coffers from an unsanitary slum called the Cooley location, where a large number of Africans lived alongside Indians. Quote, about the mixing of coffers with Indians, I must confess I feel most strongly. Okay, so coffers is like a derogatory term for Africans. Okay, a derogatory term. And he's like, nah, I don't know about all this mixing. Okay, we got to get him out of here, right? I don't know about this mixing. Okay, again, sounds pretty racist. The same year he wrote that unlike the African, the Indian had no war dances, nor did he drink coffer beer. When Durban was hit by a plague in 1905, Gandhi wrote that the problem would persist as long as Indians and Africans were being herded together indiscriminately at the hospital. Sounds like a segregationist as well, right? Sounds like a segregationist. This in and of itself, say historians, is not entirely new or revelatory. Also, some South Africans have also accused the man who led India to independence of working with the British colonial government to promote racial segregation. In April, a man was arrested in connection with vandalizing a statue of Gandhi. A hashtag Gandhi must fall has been circulated on social media. Yeah, so even some people have realized that, I don't know, man, this dude might be a racist. Okay, so we have to take down the statue. Now, I don't want Gandhi statues taken down because, hey, I think his positive contributions are more than his negative contributions. Okay, and we have Gandhi statues all over the place in the United States. Should we take those down? Right? Gandhi's not the only person with a sketchy past that if you hold the woke revolutionaries to their standard of you having to be 100% perfect, you can't be a sinner, right? Martin Luther King, should we have his statues up? Because according to the FBI, this is controversial, but you guys can read up on this stuff yourself. Martin Luther King was not exactly the saint, okay? Because the FBI, while they was conducting political opposition research, aka spying on MLK, allegedly they found that he participated in some activities that people would not find to be exactly moral, right? For example, like group sex, okay? Allegedly, he laughed while his friend forced a woman to perform certain acts against her will, right? He may have fostered children outside of his marriage. He had numerous mistresses, okay? I mean, basically, they're saying that MLK, behind closed doors, was a sexual deviant, right? Now, this is supposed to be a man that was a pastor. He's a married man. He got a wife. He got kids. And the FBI is saying that he was doing all this, okay? I mean, we're talking about him endorsing things that, again, the Me Too movement wouldn't necessarily like, right? So, if these things are to be believed, if you believe the FBI, which, again, I can understand if you don't, but if these things are true, should we take down MLK statues, right? Should we take down MLK statues? Because to me, it sounds like you should. If we're holding MLK, Gandhi, people like that, we're all holding them to the standard of you have to be a saint, right? You can't sin at all. You can't do anything wrong, right? Or else, your statue has to be taken down. You're ineligible to be honored in public. If that's the case, we got to take down those statues, right? But see, like I said, guys, these woke revolutionaries, it's not about whether or not somebody's committed any wrongdoing in the past. They don't care about that. Again, the fact that they would want to honor people like George Floyd tells you they don't really care about that. What they actually really care about is simply rewriting history in a way that they see fit, right? Particularly trying to demonize white men that contributed to the founding of this country. That's really what it's about, okay? That's really what it's about. And at the end of the day, like I said, Trump was right. If you give the left an inch, they will take them out, right? Let's take down just statues of Confederate folks, right? Just Robert E. Lee, just him, right? And just people associated with Confederacy. It always starts there, right? But it always leads to the situation we're at right now, which is Thomas Jefferson statue being removed from public square, okay? So, like I said, man, this is just shameful. It is just shameful to see. And it is more shameful that they're willing to remove Thomas Jefferson statue while at the same time honoring people like George Floyd. It really just shows you the direction of our country is not headed in the right place. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.